Bronson, Buckholz, Dexter, the Magnificent Seven.
We wish you to help us. There's this man, Calvera.
A thief. A murderer. He and his men, they steal our food. And then they leave us to starve. And he will do so until he is stopped.
Even 5 wouldn't give us too much trouble.
There won't be any trouble if you ride on.
Ride on. I'm going into the hills for the winter. Where am I going to get the food for my men?
Buy it or grow it.
Or maybe even work for it. 7. Somehow I don't think you've solved my problem.
We deal in lead, friend.
Solving your problems isn't our line.
Yul Brynner.
Anything wrong?
Turn that rig around and get it down the hill.
Steve McQueen.
Window. Curtain moved.
I'm not in a good position. Let him stick his neck out.
James Coburn.
Wallet.
Robert Vaughn. Charles Bronson. Horst Buckholz. Brad Dexter. 7 magnificent men in one magnificent motion picture. The Magnificent Seven. Eli Wallach as Calvera, the bandit.
Guns, ammunition. You know how much money that cost? Huh? Huh?
He had a town at his mercy. And the Magnificent Seven at his throat. 7 who fought like 700. The Magnificent Seven.
The Magnificent Seven is an action western movie that was released on October 23rd, 1960. It's a pretty popular movie. It has an all-star cast, as well as a newcomer, and is considered one of the best in the western genre. But does it deserve its popularity? Well, let's find out. We'll begin with the story. The story follows a bunch of Mexican villagers who are constantly being attacked by a bandit named Calvera. They eventually become sick and tired of it and decide to do something about it. However, they do not know how to fight, nor do they have money to purchase guns. But on a trip to a western town in America, they meet a gunfighter by the name of Chris and ask him for his help. Chris then recruits 6 other gunfighters like himself, and they all head to Mexico to stop Calvera and his men. I love the story. It's it's a little bit standard, but it still has very good elements to it. The story is intriguing, straightforward, and pretty consistent. There are no plot holes to think of. And overall, it's also very adventurous and even a little thought-provoking. Like there are certain parts of the movie where the characters start to question whether they belong in Mexico with poor villagers or in the Wild West with American gunfighters. But it's mostly very fun and adventurous. It also has good characters. I like characters such as Chris, Vin, Bernardo Lee, Britt, and some of the villagers, to name a few. And, you know, you got and yeah, they all have plenty to like. They all really have plenty to like about. They all really have plenty to like about them, and that and and like I said, it's an all-star cast. You got Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, um, Charles Bronson, Robert Vaughn, James Coburn, and Eli Wallach. Yeah. So yeah, it also has good writing. There are a fair amount of memorable lines of dialogue. The writing is also very mature, uh, which is why I like it even more, basically. Now the action scenes, now the action scenes are also awesome. There's a satisfying amount of action, lots of Western gunfights. It's and there's also instances where people use other kinds of weapons like axes, knives, and even chairs to defeat the enemies. The action also gets serious points for being gritty. There's actually a fair amount of blood, and the attacks are pretty realistic. The grittiness made the action scenes more enjoyable. It's not, I mean, it's not like our level, but um, but it's still pretty gritty. Now, as for the production values, the cinematography is beautiful. The music score is very good. It was done by Elmer Bernstein, who is pretty well known. He's a pretty well known movie score composer. The sound effects are good. The art decoration and set decoration are both nice, and it is edited well. Overall, this movie is the production values are done competently. The only flaw that I really have with the movie is one of the very last lines. The old man says that only the farmers won at one point. The reason I have a problem with this is it is pretty illogical. In the final action scenes, the Magnificent Seven shot shot have shot multiple men, and Chris was the one that killed Calvera. Now I do realize that the farmers made some attacks too, but they're not the only ones who fought well. Oh, and after a little bit, Chris says, as the man was right, the the farmers were the only ones that won. All this does is make me want to tell them, no, they were not. They fought just as well as you. Anyway, this is why next time I see this movie, I'm probably going to skip those lines when they come up. But the rest of the movie makes up for it so much. Much. That's just. Uh, that is just a really minor flaw that I do have with it. It's still a flaw, but yeah, you get what. It's still a flaw, but yeah. The Magnificent Seven is a great movie. It has an awesome story, awesome characters, stellar writing, awesome action scenes, solid production values, and it's just a classic, really. The only downside I have is that one line of dialogue at the end, which was illogical and did not need to be in the movie at all. But overall, The Magnificent Seven is a classic in the Western genre, like I said. I highly recommend it if you're into Western movies. It's a great one. I give The Magnificent Seven 5 out of 5 stars, with the title of Epic. I'm Spike Roa. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.